Hello and welcome to our channel. My name is Usman. Today we're going to be looking at the Canon EOS R5 and how to get the best colors and image quality from the camera. Now, although raw files from the camera are supported by Lightroom and Capture One, they don't offer full and proper color profiles. So if you import raw files from the EOS R5 into Lightroom, then the software will default to Adobe's own color profile, which looks pretty ugly. And if you watched our last video or if you read one of my articles on Petapixel, you'll know that the EOS R5 can produce incredible color that can potentially beat medium format camera systems. It is fantastic color. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to achieve that kind of color and how to get the most out of the Canon EOS R5. So I've got a bunch of images on my computer now. We're going to hop onto the computer and I'm going to show you first what it looks like in Lightroom, what it looks like in Capture One, and then I'm going to show you how to get the best colors from the Canon EOS R5. So here we have the images opened up in Lightroom now, and these images are from the same shoot that we did when we compared the Canon to the Hasselblad and from the Petapixel article that I wrote. I decided to use the same images just to kind of keep things consistent, and also for those of you who asked me what I did to the images, this way you can see exactly what I did to the Canon files to get the most out of them. So first thing you'll notice is that I've just changed the white balance. All of the images have the white balance set to 5000, and this is the same in Capture One and the other software that I'm going to be talking about as well. So the white balance has been adjusted, and we're using Adobe's own color profile, and honestly this looks pretty ugly. This looks really ugly. Skin tones look kind of gray, slight hints of green with it. There's a magenta shift on the red tones. You know, it looks pretty ugly, and you might be looking at this thinking, well, I don't see what's wrong with it, but when I compare it to the other software, you'll see exactly how ugly it looks in Lightroom. And if you want to change it to any of the other profiles, you can. So if you change to Adobe Landscape, it does look better. Like the skin tones look a lot better, but it's still not quite as good. And I'm going to leave it on Adobe Landscape because this is the best that I think Adobe can do with the colors that the Canon EOS R5 is producing. So this is actually better than the original color profile that you'll have when you first import the file. So if you import your Canon files into Lightroom, first thing you'll get is that Adobe color profile, which is not great. So you're really not making full use of the EOS R5's potential when it comes to color and image quality. And the problem is Lightroom doesn't have any Canon specific profile. So normally when you scroll down, if you're shooting with a Canon 5D Mark IV or something like that, or a 5DSR, underneath here is where you would find Canon's own specific profiles, but they don't exist in Lightroom at the moment for the EOS R5 and some of the latest cameras from Canon. But Adobe Landscape seems to do a pretty good job. It just looks a little flatter, a little bit muted, and I don't particularly like it. Like, it just has a slight matte-ish look to it, but it's not bad. However, when you jump into Capture One, we're just going to use this image as reference. When you jump into Capture One, it looks significantly better. Like, it just pops a lot more, and if we go back and forth, do you see that? It just looks way better. And this is when you just import it into Capture One. And now I've adjusted the white balance to 5000 and 0 as well, but the white balance in Capture One is slightly different, or the interpretation of white balance is slightly different to Lightroom. So I don't know exactly how to kind of adjust it, but I think 5000, it's a midway point between all of the cameras anyway, so it's not too much of an issue. But the only thing I would recommend you do in Capture One is when you go onto the color section and you go onto the profile, Capture One already has a generic profile for the EOS R5. However, change it from generic to Pro Standard, and you'll see that there is a definite difference. And I don't know if it's coming through, like, I don't know if you can notice it properly, but I just want you to focus on this area of the skin tones here. You'll see what I mean. So we're on Pro Standard, and you see how generic just kind of pumps up the magenta a bit? But if you go into the Pro Standard, it looks more natural. The skin tones have a better tonality to them, and on this image you'll be able to notice it more effectively. So just look at the skirt over here. So we're going from generic. So if you're just paying attention to the skirt, I'm going from generic to Pro Standard. Do you see that shift? It just takes away some of that extra magenta, and even if you look at the skin tones, it just takes away some of those extra magenta tones which shouldn't be there, and gives it a more natural look with the Pro Standard profile. So that's the thing that I would recommend in Capture One. Shift over from the generic to the Pro Standard. You'll get far better colors from Capture One, and for just going back and forth between Capture One and Lightroom, I'm just going to go into this one. Let's change, this is on landscape as well. And you'll notice Capture One looks much better. There's this weird green shift on the Lightroom file, but Capture One is doing a better job at representing those tones. And this is the best that Lightroom can do. However, there is one more thing you can do in Lightroom, and that is use a custom profile. So if you use a custom profile, Lightroom looks significantly better. And I'm going to do that for all of the files. So then when we compare them, we can do a more effective comparison. So now, when we go back and forth between Lightroom and Capture One, with that color profile, you'll notice how Lightroom looks a lot better. So this color profile was produced with a color checker passport. It's about £100 or so in the UK, maybe slightly less depending. I think in the US it's about $100. But if you purchase one of those and you produce a custom color profile for the EOS R5 for basically every shoot, you're going to get much better color out of that camera. But Capture One, I believe, still does a better job. You can also produce custom ICC profiles in Capture One as well, which tend to look a lot better, especially when you use something like a Color Checker Digital SG. But that's a very different issue, a very different story, costs a lot more money, takes a bit more effort as well. So we're not going to go too much into that. But you can improve the colors from Lightroom if you use a Color Checker Passport, although I still think Capture One does a better job in comparison, especially when it comes to the skin tones. So over here, you know, they're very close now. In fact, they're very, very close. But Capture One just has a certain pop to it, which looks a lot better in comparison to Lightroom. However, there is one more piece of software which doesn't cost anything and does a much better job in comparison to Capture One and Lightroom, and that is Canon's own proprietary software, and that is Digital Photo Professional 4. Now, the way to get this software is just directly from their website. If you just search Digital Photo Professional 4, that software will come up. And if you own a Canon camera, all you need to do is input your serial number when the website asks you. And if your serial number gets accepted, which you should do if you've got a proper Canon camera, then you'll be able to download this software for free. And with the Canon EOS R5, this software does an incredible job at representing color. It's just amazing how well this software does in bringing the most out of the Canon EOS R5. So we've got the white balance set to daylight, which is close enough in comparison to what I've got on Capture One and Lightroom. And when you first install the files, they won't look as good as they can do. So over here right now, this is not the full potential. What you need to do is you need to go onto this cog thing over here, this cog tab, configure basic settings, click on that. It's going to be defaulted to sRGB. And what you need to do is click on that and change it to Adobe RGB. So if you just pay attention to her face over here, to Karen's face, we're going to switch from sRGB to Adobe RGB. Watch how the colors change. Do you see that difference? It's a huge difference in comparison. Like the colors just pop. It really comes out on the screen. It makes such a huge difference. Skin tones look so much more vibrant. The lips and everything looks far better in comparison. And there's that vibrancy and accuracy which isn't present when you're in sRGB mode. sRGB just looks flatter. It doesn't have the tonality that Adobe RGB has, obviously because it's a much smaller gamma in comparison to Adobe RGB. I think wide gamma RGB might be better, but my screen can only represent Adobe RGB colors, so I don't think it's doing a better job, or I'm not seeing the results, but wide gamma RGB might be better, especially if your screen can represent those colors more effectively. But I'm leaving it in Adobe RGB, so at least you can see the difference. And if you go on to this image over here, this is an sRGB, and watch how this color changes as well. Do you see how it just brings out all the colors so much more effectively? Once again, it's because Adobe RGB is a significantly wider color space in comparison to sRGB. So all of those extra colors which have been interpolated can be filled in more effectively with the Adobe RGB color space. And finally, this image over here, you'll see how it just pops. And we're going to go back and forth. So Capture One was doing the best job so far. And if you go back and forth between Capture One and Digital Photo Professional, like now, Capture One doesn't look as good. Like this looks so much better. The skin color is so much more accurate. It doesn't have like a weird green or magenta shift. It looks like the skin color. I mean, darker skin tones are quite difficult for a lot of camera manufacturers, but with Digital Photo Professional, and Canon EOS R5, it does an incredible job. This is absolutely fantastic. Honestly, darker skin color. I mean, I live with darker skin colors. I know what it's like. And yeah, Canon is doing an incredible job. This is far better than both Capture One and Lightroom. Like if we go from digital photo, like look at this and look at that. Do you see the difference? It's just remarkable how good the Digital Photo Professional is when it comes to rendering color for the EOS R5. It really brings out the potential of what this camera is capable of, and I highly recommend you use this software if you want to get the most out of the EOS R5. Unfortunately, software is really clunky. It's a pain to use, it's a bit slow, and I'm not a fan. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of this software. Because it's just a bit of a pain. I mean, most proprietary software from these camera manufacturers tend to be pretty sucky anyway. This one is okay, but the impact it has on colors, definitely worth it in my book. And then once you've finished all the processing on the raw, the raw processing that you want to do, you can simply save the file as a TIFF file to wherever you want to put it, 16-bit TIFF file, and the colors will be embedded into the file. So the benefit of that is, even when you take it into Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever, those colors are embedded in, so they're not going to change. They're going to look exactly like that. And then when you convert this file to a JPEG with sRGB so that you can put it online or onto a website or whatever, it dithers down from the original embedded profile. So it still looks very, very, very close to the original file. It's not going to look like this. It's not going to look like that. It's going to look like this, but dither down to that web file, or ready for web file, and so on and so forth. So it's still going to look significantly better. So I think that although software like Lightroom, you can improve the colors if you just use a color checker profile. That's going to cost you about £100. Alternatively, you can purchase Capture One, and Capture One will do a much better job as soon as you import the files into the software. But obviously, Capture One is going to cost you some money. But if you already use Capture One, not going to cost you anything extra. But if you don't, then there's obviously a cost involved there. However, Digital Photo Professional, completely free, doesn't cost anything at all. You don't need to take any extra steps. You simply import the files, change it to Adobe RGB, and away you go. And I highly recommend this if you want to get the most out of your Canon EOS R5. If you're not doing these kinds of steps, if you're just importing into Lightroom and just using Adobe's own color, you're seriously limiting the potential of the Canon EOS R5. And look at that. It just looks disgusting. It looks horrible. You're seriously limiting the potential of what you can achieve or what you can produce with the Canon EOS R5. It is a brilliant camera when it comes to color, and I highly recommend you don't use default profiles from Lightroom. Capture One is a good alternative. Digital Photo Professional is definitely the best choice. So there you have it. That's how you can get the most out of Canon's EOS R5 RAW files. That's how you can produce the best looking color and images. Unfortunately, Canon's proprietary software is a little bit clunky and quite frustrating to use, but it does produce great looking images. The results are fantastic, and it's free. It doesn't cost any money to use that software. So if you don't mind changing your workflow, or just going through Canon software, then you can produce far better looking images and far better looking results after you've exported the TIFF file. However, if you don't mind spending a little bit of money and you don't mind putting in a little bit of initial effort with the Color Checker Digital SG, then you can produce your own color profiles, and you can produce your own ICC custom profiles and use it in Capture One, which are good, but I still think that the vibrancy and accuracy from Canon's own software does a fantastic job. So depends on your preference, but there are options available. The point is, currently Lightroom doesn't offer the best solution. Doesn't have the best software. It's not the best software for Canon RAW files, so I do recommend you try and avoid Lightroom if you're using Canon's latest cameras. It just doesn't have the color profiles to get the most out of the RAW files. And in the meantime, try and use Canon's own software to initially process the files, or Capture One, or some other workflow where you're going to get the most out of the color from the Canon EOS R5. Anyway, if you have any comments, suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. We'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. If you like this video, hit the like button, please subscribe, share this video, and hope to see you all in the next one. Thank you.